Hey guys, in this podcast we talk about different health topics and medicine. As we are not health experts, we would ask for you to check with your doctor first before using any of the information provided in this podcast. Furthermore, we talk about third-party views in this podcast. Please know that we have no intention of misrepresenting their views, and we apologize in advance if we do so. Thanks.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Contemplation Hypothezation podcast. Today, what are we talking about, Paul?
Today we were talking about sleep.
Okay, so basically we're just going to investigate the science of it, different aspects, how it affects you, and how your knowledge of sleep can help you improve your lifestyle. So Paul, were there a couple things you want to mention off the bat that kind of occurred for you for sleep?
Okay, so my whole, all my studies in sleep pretty much came from the fact that I was a high school student that was required to wake up at 6 o'clock every morning to then go to school at 7, and I just could never, stay awake during the whole day of school, and so I was like, what is going on here? So I did a little bit of research and stuff, and interestingly, the reason why that happens to most teenagers is that adolescents start producing serotonin at different times than adults do, and serotonin is what makes you feel sleepy. It's like the hormone that's pushed through the body.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can explain that more, but basically, teenagers tend to not start producing that until 12 o'clock, and then they don't stop producing until 8 o'clock. And that's why when parents say we're lazy, it's not that we're lazy, it's just that our bodies are on different clocks. So to me, it never made sense that the entire high school followed a schedule that went counter to 98% of the people who attended the high school.
Gotcha.
And,
Okay.
and instead helped the teacher. So I was always for pushing back the time just so I could function throughout the day.
Yeah, I mean, one thing just to comment on that is a lot of people like to stay up late, and when you're 14 to 28, something around there, you just feel alive and you feel like you don't want to go to bed at 10 o'clock. It just doesn't make sense to you, and so you kind of wake up the next day regretting that you didn't go to bed earlier. And I agree with you that it is very difficult, but a lot of research has shown in the past, we're talking ancient caveman days, that people actually did go to bed at 10 o'clock when they were our age. They actually went to bed around 9:30 because that's when the sun would set, and they didn't have lights or candles. So the whole point.
But the point though of that is that's not modern times.
Right.
Today we have different lighting. We have computer lights. We have house lights, street lights.
Right. Yeah.
And so
exactly.
today it doesn't make any sense. So it doesn't matter what we're doing in the past.
Right. But
what matters is what's happening now.
Right. But the point is that it is possible. That's what I'm trying to show. It is possible for someone who is 14 to 28 to go to bed at 10 and get up at 6.
Yeah, but I just think it's not as natural. And for an adult, adults tend to start producing serotonin at 9 and stop producing at 6. And so that's why you see adults go to bed earlier and then wake up earlier.
Right. Yeah. So I think one thing that we kind of need to talk about is everyone always is like, well, if only I didn't have to sleep 8 hours a night, or maybe if I could cut down to 6, or don't worry, man, I can go on 4 hours a night. I got have my coffee in the morning,
Yeah.
And we kind of just want to talk about why that's probably not a good idea.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's so, and a lot of people will say, I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of substantial amount of time. If you go to sleep only for 4 hours a night instead of 8, you're getting 4 hours a day. That's huge. That's half a work day.
Right.
So there's a lot of reasons why you don't want to cut your sleep out, especially when you're younger.
Mm-hmm.
You want to do what your recommended doctor says because it affects your entire body. And the probably the best way to explain this in sleep is that through your dreams, you are actually able to get better at everything that you do. So
there's an element to it, yeah.
Right, yeah. So I don't want to say exactly through your dreams. I'm just saying when you're sleeping, you're actually improving yourself and your ability to do certain tasks.
Yeah.
Not only mental tasks, but also physical tasks.
Yeah.
So,
and you're also recovering physically.
Right, yeah. You're also
repairing your body and
healing,
stuff. That's what gives you
I mean, just think of it like this. You use your eyes, let's say if you sleep 8 hours a day, you use your eyes 16 hours a day. But if someone is sleeping only 4 hours a day, they're using their eyes 20 hours a day. Your eyes actually take out a lot of energy from your body.
Wow.
That's why actually cameras on your phone suck the energy out of your phone. Registering vision is one of the hardest, most data-intensive processes.
Wow.
So that's why you close your eyes when you sleep. But that's why you don't close your ears when you don't sleep, because audio is much less data processing. So the whole point is that you A, recover, but B, I think more importantly, you are actually developing and recovering a lot of different processes in your body. So let's take a couple examples of this. So what they did is they kind of had some people sit down and play Tetris. Everyone knows Tetris.
And then if you have played Tetris before, probably one thing that you realized was that if you play it enough, then you start having dreams about it.
Right.
That's why they did it, because almost everyone who plays Tetris has dreams about Tetris, and they're like, why is this? What's the point of that?
So what they did is they had some mice. It wasn't exactly Tetris, but they'd have mice run a maze. They'd have humans play Tetris and then dream and then have them in the sleep lab. The whole point is all this research showed that you reenact the same brain areas that you use for Tetris or for moving around a maze or even for snowboarding down a hill in your dreams or while you're sleeping.
Yeah, you actually fire the same neurons that you do.
Right.
And kind of an interesting story if you want me to add it, but so basically, while you're asleep, your brain still fires neurons, but there's part of the brain that stops your body from actually moving, your limbs and stuff.
Exactly.
And so you can actually experience this thing where you wake up paralyzed because your body hasn't stopped that process yet. So I think maybe 3 or 4 times in my life, I've woken up and been unable to move.
Right.
And then it takes a minute or two, and then I start moving. But I was really freaking out when it happened.
Yeah, and people who are sleepwalking, that's a disorder with that process. It's natural for your body to induce paralysis on yourself, but sleepwalking is a disorder where that paralysis doesn't work. And so you end up moving in your bed or kicking and punching, stuff like that. And that's actually why you also talk in your sleep too. Because your mouth is think of your body from toe to head. and your body kind of paralyzes it from toe to head. But the very top part is your mouth, and so the paralysis kind of like wears off by the time it gets to your mouth. That's the roughest way I can explain it. And so that's why a lot of people talk in their sleep. But it might be like the slurred speech because their mouth is like kind of turned off.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Nate actually talks in his sleep.
yeah. So anyways,
that's why he brought that up.
Yeah. So what I want to say is with these Tetris and snowboarding studies, they found that people are actually reenacting these in their dreams and subconsciously while they sleep. And more importantly, when they tested them the next day with many different exercises, they're actually better. They're better at it. So let's say you practice 2 hours. Let's say you practice 4 hours of an activity. You could practice 2 hours at like day one and sleep on it, and then practice 2 more hours on day 2. Or you could practice 2 hours all on day 1, maybe in the morning, and then 2 hours in the afternoon, in the evening. You would actually be better at something if you spent 2 days for 2 hours practicing it. And this actually kind of ties into one of the things we said on our Skill Up podcast, where the 10,000 hour rule, where you only do 3 hours of hardcore learning a day. So that's kind of the reason why it's better to just wait. You don't.
Because your body needs to recover.
Yeah, each time you fall asleep, you're actually retraining yourself on what you did that day.
Yeah.
So the thing is that if you only sleep 4 hours, you're actually cutting your training time in half. And remember, this training time is like subconscious. You don't even have to work hard for this training time. Like it's all just happening naturally in your brain. So that's a really important factor. So if you're doing like physical exercise or there's a lot of studies that show like the coordination of like catching a ball, for example, or your ability to perform on like mathematical tests. All of these are like improved substantially with at least 1 night's worth of sleep. Even a nap helps as well. So that's a really important factor. And there's because of that, there are so many side effects of sleep that if you don't get enough sleep every night, this can lead to. So a couple things. There are a couple studies, like for example, that found that sleep, a lack of sleep leads to more breakups. So more relational breakups are caused by lack of sleep. There's also a couple studies that show that lack of sleep leads to less happiness. So if you don't get that much sleep, you usually get more depressed.
And that actually ties a lot into what I was talking about earlier with the high school thing.
Right.
And how basically like when they've actually pushed back the high school arrival time, first off, like people are a lot happier because like waking up that early for most people makes them feel kind of depressed, but also people perform way better on like exams and stuff.
Right. Yeah, and so there's a couple other things that you probably just wouldn't see clearly. So for example, it gets you more depressed. It actually gets you more stressed too if you sleep less than what you're supposed to.
Yeah.
And then finally, actually lack of sleep leads to obesity as well. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to make sure you get your sleep. And the problem is that a lot of the negative effects that you experience from a lack of sleep don't hit you immediately. They hit you much later on, years later. And so it's kind of like hearing, if you go to a rock concert, your ears are usually fine. Maybe they'll ring you a little bit the next day, but then you recover. It's only 10 or 20 years later that it actually hits you. The damage effect actually hits you. And so then you're in severe regret that you wish, you didn't do that or you did something else. So the whole point is that sleep is kind of like the brain's way of training itself. And it also trains their brain's organization for any coordination, sports, or any other type of activity that you do. So that's important. That's the reasons why you want to get your full night's
sleep. One thing that I was going to ask about, because I'm not sure, because this might just be sleep theory, but like Freud, for example, Sigmund Freud wrote a book called Interpretation of Dreams. And the idea behind the book is that like another aspect of our sleep is to work out emotional problems in our head while we're asleep. And that's like why you might have a dream of like someone close to you dying, because maybe like you suspect, maybe something subconsciously suspects that you are going to have to like move apart from someone. So by having that dream, you kind of experience it first, and then by experience beforehand, you can kind of deal with the stress better. And so like a lot of people I've heard theorize that one aspect of sleep is that we actually learn how to deal and cope with our emotions in our sleep.
Yes, kind of. So a lot of people will wonder, like, well, first of all, if you do sleep, it does make you happier, and it does make you more emotionally adept. So you are able to like just resolve emotional distresses much more easily if you are on a full night's worth of rest, and you've done that continuously throughout the day. It's also been shown that you're even better at combating emotional distresses if you keep the same circadian rhythm. So basically, you just go to the same bed at the same time, approximately, and get up around the same time. We'll talk about circadian rhythm because that's also just as important as getting a full night's worth of rest.
Yeah. Now, with circadian rhythm, if I recall, there's people who have different rhythms, and it causes you to either be a morning person or like a late night person.
Right.
Do you find that to be factual? Because I remember reading that somewhere. Like, that's why some of us like struggle to wake up early in the morning, while others of us tend to excel at night, and we have different like peak times during the day in which we can do activities.
Yeah.
And it has to do with our circadian rhythm.
So actually, circadian rhythm is just as important as getting a full night's worth of rest because the circadian rhythm determines when you will actually go into different stages of sleep.
Okay. Yeah.
So you, for example, like let's say you usually go to bed at like 11, and one night you go to bed at like 9. Okay. Your body is kind of thrown off, and it takes it longer to get into the same stage that would have taken if you went to bed at 11. So let's say you usually go to bed at 11 and you get up at 7. Okay. If you went to bed at 9, you would actually probably not get up at 5, but probably 6, and you've slept longer, but to get the same result.
Really?
So the whole point is that you want to keep the same circadian rhythm. It's been shown numerous times that like if you don't keep the same circadian rhythm, your IQ lowers, your EQ lowers. You want to be able to keep the same circadian rhythm. And obviously, in our day and age, it's kind of impossible to do that. You just want to do as much as you can.
Okay, so what you're saying basically is like, if I'm someone who, I get back from work and I'm really tired, so I decided to go to sleep at like 8 o'clock, and I sleep all the way till like maybe 8 a.m. the next morning. Well, then the next night I sleep from like, I stay out with my friends late, and I don't go to sleep till like 3, and then I wake up at 11. The next night I maybe go to sleep at 12, wake up at 6. You're saying that all of this is going to accumulate, and I'm going to like suffer from it because it's
Yeah, what I'm saying is, first of all, it's not as efficient. Like, you will have to sleep more hours to get the same result. And second of all, it's not as good. Your result is not as good.
Yeah.
So
this explains why I'm so tired right now. This has been my sleep schedule.
Okay.
Like, 3 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Like...
Yeah. Now let me clarify one thing. A lot of people, there's like a theory, I should say, in medicine called the sleep debt. And what that is like if you stay out late a lot and you're just so tired that like when Saturday hits, you just crash and sleep in. And that's what a lot of people do. Like during the week, they only get like 6 hours a night, and then on Saturday they like sleep for like 10 or 12 hours.
So let me ask a quick question. So let's say that this is my problem. Like I'm not getting that circadian rhythm, and I'm like going to sleep at like random times, and all of this tiredness is building up. Are you saying that a solution to that is that I can just sleep all day one day and like catch up on all that neglected sleep and then be back to normal? Because there must be some extent, because we can't just keep falling behind more and more on sleep until we die.
Yeah,
like,
right. Well, the important thing is this. I'm saying your body's natural way of it's really damaged when you don't get enough sleep each night. And so your body's way of saying like I just can't take anymore is to just collapse and then just sleep for like 12 hours straight.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Where you are just out for like 12 hours, and it doesn't matter why it's happened. So the whole point is that that actually is not as good for you, because what ends up happening is you waste more time trying to catch up on the sleep that you should have had, but it's not as effective. So
there must be some way to catch up though, because then
that's
if you mess up 1 week,
well, that's what it is. The thing is that you are catching up when you're doing a sleep debt, but there is some catching up that's irreparable. Like each time that if you are like sleeping like maybe 5 hours a night or something, and then on the weekends you crash for like 10 hours each night. Yes, you are you're catching up on a lot that you were supposed to, but you can't quite catch up on it all. It's kind of like studying for an exam.
Well, it's kind of like human nature would just be like we aren't capable of like living perfect lifestyles.
Right, yeah. So, but I'm saying it's like kind of like studying for an exam. Like let's say you have an exam in 2 weeks and you procrastinate, and then eventually like you have to like study, like you have to cram it all in the night before or the 2 nights before.
Oh, I see.
You can't cram all that. If you had just spent that same amount of time and then like distributed over those past days, you'd be much better at the exam. You just there's just something that you can't get when you cram. So the whole point is that you want to try to somehow be disciplined enough to distribute your sleep and really try to get your 8 hours a night. Now, certain people have to sleep less than others. That's just it's either fortunate or unfortunate.
Well, I did not see it being fortunate to be one of those people who has to sleep more.
Well, there's some controversy about that. The people that actually have to sleep more turn out to be more energetic than other people. So there's kind of so some people always thought like, oh well, that sucks if you have to sleep more, because I mean you're just missing out on life here, you know.
Yeah.
But the reality is that those people that have to sleep more, some people say that they are actually better at doing what they do. And maybe it's because they are sleeping more. So maybe
like that. So you're saying that the activities during their day, like generally, maybe the habits they build over time require more repair and more sleep, and that's why their body needs
like
it.
If you look at like long distance runners, you'll probably find that they sleep more than the average person.
Wow.
But the thing is that in the end they probably end up winning. Well, literally, but also they end up winning because they end up like first of all, it's very healthy for them.
Yeah.
And second of all, some people say that their IQ is higher.
Runners?
Like if you do a long distance running and you do the sleep regime. I mean, the thing is though, is you're kind of getting to like correlation versus causation, because maybe runners tend to eat healthier diets, and then maybe that increases their IQ and stuff. So it's not very clear. But the whole point is that if you're able to sleep the 8 hours that you need a night and keep the same circadian rhythm, it's really good. It improves your personality, it improves your mental skills, it improves your coordination. Now, the final tipper to this that a lot of people kind of like get upset about is keeping your circadian rhythm with the sun. So if you are able to go to bed when the sun sets and when the sun rises,
not gonna happen.
Yeah, well, for the average person, it's probably not going to happen. But I just want to say this because it's interesting. It's much better for you because you get an increased vitamin D. So what that means is when you're like when you're in the sun,
is that maybe like one of the reasons why like backpacking is such like a relaxing experience?
Yeah,
like when you're out backpacking,
right? When you're
tired at like 8 o'clock, because it's so dark.
Yeah, you're so tired that you just go to bed and then you get up at like 6 a.m. when the sun rises. And the thing is, I mean, there's all these studies that show like when you're in the sun, you're happier because you're producing vitamin D more, and vitamin D is a hormone that makes you happier. There's all these studies that show like when you work when the sun is up, you're more efficient, you're happier, and you're just better. And that's a separate topic, but it's just kind of related to sleep. And I recognize that's ridiculous. No one's going to go to bed at 10 and get up at 6.
Well, that's not ridiculous, but no one's going to go to bed at like 8.
Oh,
and then wake up at
well,
like
the sun.
5.
Like the sun can go. I mean, yes. I mean, obviously during the winter, the sun's time, depending on where you are, is shorter,
Yeah.
and you are obviously staying up more than what the sun is doing. But what I'm trying to say is that if you can try to keep your bedtime like 9:30, 10, 10:30, and respectively 5:30, 6, 6:30, it's great.
No, like Nick is talking a lot about like the importance of sleep and stuff, and just something that sort of has some practical value is that normally like when people take exams like the last week of a semester, their sleeping schedule is worse than the rest of the semester, and like we've talked a lot about how much like sleeping facilitates your ability to learn and cram. So it's very counterproductive to not have a good sleeping cycle.
Yeah.
But a lot of us we slack off so much that we have to like reduce our sleep. But in the end, it costs us, and we end up not learning the material and not performing as well on the test.
Yeah, that's a really good tie-in, Paul. The thing is that when you try to cram a lot and you try to take a test, I actually sometimes, if I have to like cram before a test, at some point I just say, you know what? It is probably more productive for me to sleep than to memorize more vocab words.
Yeah.
And I just go to sleep. And I mean, I don't know for sure. Like, I can't prove to you that I've done better than if I had stayed up more that night. But I just feel better. Like, I feel like more, in the zone. Like, maybe I can figure out this engineering problem. Maybe if I don't know it all, at least maybe I can try to figure
Figure
out
out pieces of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a really important thing.
Yeah, and to throw on top of that, like studying before you go to sleep is often like I think they've had studies that shown that if you do study before you go to sleep, you'll tend to recall it better in the morning,
Right?
Because you do go over the processes in your head before you go to sleep.
Right. Now, one thing I also want to talk about, which is really important, is insomnia. And people kind of get at different stages of life. Some people have it their whole life. Now, some people don't get it, but you might find that there are just times where you just can't fall asleep, but like you have to fall asleep, and the next day you just feel terrible. And I want to just give some tips to people.
Yeah. So like
talk about
an
it.
example would sort of be like you have a job interview tomorrow, or you like have to speak in front of a bunch of people,
Right?
And you have to perform, and so you know to yourself like how important your sleep is, but then that keeps you thinking consciously and prevents you from actually falling asleep.
Yeah, exactly. So, and also just some people, they don't even have an exam or a presentation tomorrow. They just can't fall asleep, and they just don't know why. And I used to have this when I was younger. So there's a lot of small things that you can do, and if you do, the more of these you do, the more of a chance you're going to hit the pillow really hard. So the first obvious ones are like diet and exercise. Just clearly shown. If you do aerobic exercise continuously on a continuous basis, you eat a very healthy diet, vegetables, the whole thing, you will sleep better. Just shown dead on. The other thing is the circadian rhythm we talked about. When your body is used to going to bed, you should go to bed. Your body's expecting to go to bed, and it's not just humans. This is found across like the animal kingdom. Everybody has a circadian rhythm, and they follow that too. That's a really important thing to notice. So the other thing with insomnia though is the worry factor about it, and I want to talk about this more because what ends up happening is you end up worrying that like you're not going to get enough sleep, and then you're not going to perform out the presentation, and the presentation is going to go bad, and then you're not going to get the next promotion, and it keeps going and going and going. And the thing you have to realize is the worrying about insomnia is worse than the insomnia itself. So if you
But then what if you start worrying that you're worrying about insomnia and that worrying is worse than
well,
insomnia?
the whole point is what I'm trying to say is that
It's more damaging to your body.
It's more damaging to your body, and you will perform worse if you are worrying about something than if you were on no hours of sleep the night before.
Yeah, one thing my dad always said, like when I would have situations like where I just trying to go to sleep because of something that's morning, he'd always say like, Paul, just lying in bed is like rest, and your body is recovering just from that. So don't worry so much about getting sleep. Just just lay in bed and just relax. And that's going to be
right. That was the other thing I wanted to mention. So like when you lay in bed and you're like, God, I'm not falling asleep, and then you like might wake up the next day and be like, God, I got like 1 hour of sleep. I didn't even fall asleep. The reality is you probably fell asleep for about 4 hours and you didn't realize it. The thing is that when you just have your eyes closed, you're automatically triggering like different hormones for sleeping. And it doesn't matter if you're worried about like a meteor hitting. It doesn't matter. You will actually get some mental rest. It's less processing that your brain has to do. And so the whole point is like a lot of people say, well, when I can't sleep, I just get up and I do something, and that might work. But the thing is that if you have a certain amount of hours before a presentation or something, you can go up and get up and do something. But I would also recommend just sleeping. Just lay in the bed and sleep. Another thing for insomnia is to not do anything but sleep in your bed. So like a lot of people like lay in bed and like they have like their laptop and stuff.
Yeah,
and
that's
like,
terrible. Just
videos.
the light from computer screens like woke you up.
Yeah. So so the whole point is that like you don't want to. You basically don't want to be staring at a computer screen, but we all do at night. And second of all, you don't want to be doing you don't want to like be typing while you're in your bed because your body memorizes different zones throughout the house and has different emotional responses to those zones. And when you emotionally connect your bed to Facebook, then it just thinks, oh, I'm in bed. I'm gonna be staying awake and I'm gonna be checking Facebook. And so what ends up happening is it's harder to sleep.
So let me ask you a quick question. So like I know a lot of people like when they want to go to sleep, they like read a book.
Yeah.
And it helps them fall asleep. Would you say that's
Well,
good,
that ties into another thing that I want to talk about, and that is the state of being bored and how that is connected to falling asleep.
Yeah, so I think like one example of this is like a lot of people have heard like sort of the cliche thing like counting sheep.
Yeah. Right.
Like just getting your brain like focused on one thing helps you to become incredibly bored and then fall asleep. But I don't want to.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So basically, just imagine like you have like a scenario where someone has like a long day at work where they were just filling out forms, same form over and over again. and then they like had to go, maybe like they had to go pick up something at the grocery store, but they had already gotten groceries earlier that day, but they forgot one more item, so they had to go to the grocery store again, and they're just exhausted when they come home. But you know, it's 9 o'clock, they don't care, they're just gonna go to bed. But imagine they get a call that night and they won the lottery. Like all of a sudden, you're not tired.
Yeah.
In fact, you're the opposite of tired. You are the most excited you've ever been in your life. It doesn't matter what had happened hours beforehand. You're just like ecstatic that you've won this lottery.
Yeah, and you don't sleep,
Yeah,
and you're not even tired.
You go to bed at like 3 a.m. that night, just celebrating that you've won the lottery. Okay, so the whole point with this is that there was a lot of mental stimuli that happened that allowed you to stay up later and made you stay up later. Like you didn't want to go to bed. And what I'm trying to say is that your brain goes to sleep when it's bored, and when you are mentally engaged, you are never tired. So if you look at like somebody who does the same, you might say someone worked really hard. Let's say someone like washed dishes all day. They might have worked really hard. Now let's say also you're like Steve Jobs and you were designing like this new iPad, then you had to design this new phone, and then you had to like go in and like design this new computer. You're just like hopping all over the place, and then you have this board meeting with this really important guy. You know, you're just hopping all over the place. And they both worked for 8 hours a day, but the dishwasher guy is just dead tired. And Steve Jobs is like, well, yeah, I had a good day. I mean, a lot went on. I don't even know what happened, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm so tired. But like, I'm like tired, but I'm like not. And that is what you want. You want as much mental stimulation as you possibly can get throughout your day. Because if you are mentally involved in something, you will not get tired. And it is the opposite. It is when you are bored that you get tired. That is why you fall asleep at a TV.
Or like if you're in a waiting room, like waiting for a doctor, and like it's taking 2 hours, you might just doze off.
Yeah, exactly. Or like you fall asleep in the classroom.
Or people fall asleep at church.
Yeah, exactly. The whole point is that they're not mentally stimulated. And you might say, like, Nick, that was kind of obvious. I kind of knew that already.
Yeah, it's actually good to point out.
But it's really important to point out because this has transformed my view on how I do things. Like I talked earlier about how like, you know, I do this crazy like exercise studying, like I study while I'm exercising, like on the elliptical or something. But the whole point is that if I was just on the elliptical, I would be bored out of my mind. And I'd be tired. After like 20 minutes, I'm like, this is just stupid. I'm not doing this anymore. But if you are reading something engaging or you're watching a TV show or something like that, you are just like, your mind is taken off of the elliptical and it's engaged, which is the most important part of this. It's engaged the entire time. So what ends up happening is you don't want to fall asleep.
Yeah.
You're too excited not to fall asleep. And I want to just talk to people that when you are tired, when you're and you've gotten your 8 hours a night, it's not because you're actually tired. It's because you're not mentally engaged in something. And you need to change whatever, you need to somehow alter your situation so that you can become mentally engaged. Now there's two forms, like either it's too mentally hard for you to grasp or it's
Throw out an example,
Yeah.
and maybe you could troubleshoot. So like today, I got 8 hours of sleep.
Okay.
And as soon as I woke up, I went to the zoo. I probably got more than 8 hours of sleep, honestly. Like, and I went to the zoo, and you know, like I had a fair amount of energy at first, but then by 2 hours in, I was like dead tired, and I was like, I don't want to see any more animals. I've seen so many animals already. Was I getting tired because I didn't have adequate sleep the night before? Which, well, I'm not gonna say it couldn't be a matter of both, or was it because I was getting bored at the zoo?
It was
not
my guess.
putting my brain into something.
My guess is probably because you were mentally bored.
Okay.
And this is actually why you like that. There's like a quote somewhere where like, you know, it takes like, you know, 1,000 tons of effort to walk like 1 block with a nagging wife, but you could walk 10 miles with a sweetheart.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing is that it's not the physical exercise that wears you down. It's actually the mental engagement that you have that wears you down.
Now, let me ask you another question. Because okay, so let's say that I was just getting bored, and that's why I was getting tired in the first place.
Yeah.
So as soon as I get tired, it's harder then to become stimulated with stuff.
Yeah.
So does like if you allow yourself to get bored, then is it harder to then get stimulated in other stuff because you've already gone down this, like you've dug yourself in a hole of tiredness, basically?
Yeah, and there's two options you can do. In my opinion, there's like, I call it the 25-minute nap option, or you can actually fight and turn around. Like when we said that you won the lottery example, it doesn't take that. I mean, you could probably be as tired as, you know, no other, but you would probably, no matter what, be at least a little bit excited. So the whole point is that it is possible, but the thing I want to talk about was the nap. And there's a lot of studies that show naps help tremendously.
Yeah.
The problem is that with our society, it's so hard to take a nap on a regular basis. Like, no one is going to allow you to take a 25-minute nap at 2
Except for your
p.m.
kindergarten teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
In kindergarten, they had
Exactly.
so many things, right? They
Right.
taught you like EQ stuff, like emotional intelligence stuff, and they gave you time to nap.
Right.
Then you go to the rest of school, it's all like
Yeah, it's all downhill. So,
Downhill from there.
So the whole point is that you want to make sure that you can be able to take a 25 or 30-minute nap. Now, why is it like 25 minutes or 30 minutes? This has to do with like different sleep cycles and different sleep schedules. But people have found that naturally during the day, you're inclined to take like a 23-minute nap or something like that. So the whole point is if you can set aside a half an hour, you don't even need to set an alarm, and you can just say, you know what, I'm just gonna get up in 25 minutes or 30 minutes. I'm just gonna lie down for a little bit, and you're just out, and you're just you're like refreshed the next day.
Yeah.
And it's been shown numerous times that, or I shouldn't say it's been shown, I think it's just been theorized numerous times that if you sleep 25 or 30 minutes during the afternoon, and then you sleep 7.5 at night, so you've done 8 hours total, you are like fully engaged, full of energy. You're like, they tend to be less obese. They tend to be able to exercise more. Their emotional cues on their faces are heightened. So like their eyebrows go up higher, or different body languages are have more energy in them. It goes across the board. Your personality is more engaging. So
Yeah, well, let me add something to this that I think everyone listening should understand too. Is that so? Like, let's say you get like 5 hours of sleep in a night, and then the next day you get 5 hours, and the day after that 5 hours. The first day that you got 5 hours, you're just going to be a wreck. But then the second day, you're going to get a little bit more used to it, and the third day you're going to get a little bit more used to it. So it gives you the impression that like you're not getting that much sleep, but your body gets used to it. So a lot of people think like, oh, well, I don't really need 8 hours because as I get used to sleeping 5 hours, I get to the point where I can like function with 5 hours just as well as I could with 8. But that's never the case.
Right.
You can trick yourself into thinking you're becoming more used to it. But actually all the studies on sleep that have studied this have shown that when you do get a limited amount of sleep, your ability to function at 100% is diminished.
Yeah, another thing, that's a really good thing to point out. Another thing is you may think that you're getting more hours in a day, but your overall efficiency decreases, and you actually get less work done than if you actually had slept and then try to get work done.
Yeah.
Like if you were trying to study for an exam and you had 3 extra hours because you only slept 5 hours instead of 8, you might be like, oh, well, this is much better. But in reality, you actually got less work done despite having more time because your efficiency was drastically lowered. And a lot of people are just usually when they hear this, they're like, well, there's just no way I could get like 8 hours a night. Like I'm just super busy.
Well, first off, if you're saying that, like pay attention to what you're doing during the day, because most people use their time incredibly ineffectively. Like one trick that I've heard a lot of people do is like they go through a whole day and they like monitor every single action that they do throughout the day, because most people are just using their time really terribly. Like there's really no reason why you shouldn't get 8 hours of sleep. No one is really that busy. No one is working the whole day and then running 8 hours.
Yeah.
So that's one point.
Another thing, to back up what Paul's saying is, if you can't tell me that you don't have 8 hours a night, because what ends up happening on the weekend is you catch up on all this. So you actually did have all the hours, but you're just distributing them differently. So the whole point is that you want to make sure that you can try to integrate somehow into your lifestyle a consistent bedtime that tries to get the 8 hours of sleep that doctors recommend. Now, it varies for some people. And if you do that, you won't notice the benefits at first, but they will come as you continue to do this. You'll just be healthier. You can sleep better. You will be able to have even better relationships. You're mentally better. You can work harder. You can work more efficiently. You're happier. So basically, we just want to do a podcast on sleep real quick.
Yeah. Well, before we go, I do want to add like two quick things to it. So I don't know if you would actually support this idea or whatever, but with the whole nap idea, like my tendency is like when I take a nap in the afternoon, I set my alarm for like 20 minutes, and then 20 minutes goes by and I'm like, shoot, I am like incredibly tired still, and then I end up going back to sleep for another 3 hours, and it almost happens every time. So one trick that I've heard to avoid this problem is to actually drink like a cup of coffee or drink some caffeine and then take a nap, and then when that 20 minutes comes up, you wake up and you like actually have energy and you want to get up, and it works really well. So I don't know if you would
I probably wouldn't recommend that. I mean, I'm actually
against caffeine.
I'm against caffeine. But I can't say like that's a scientific thing. Like don't drink coffee. Like that, I don't think that's been proven. Yeah. But for those who don't know, caffeine is like a chemical that releases that allows cells to release their sugar or to accept sugar too. So what it does is it doesn't actually give you like energy. It just allows energy to be transported. And that's a really important statement, because the energy was there the whole time. It wasn't the caffeine that gave you the energy.
Just gave you the illusion of it?
It gave you the illusion of it, and you had the energy to begin with.
Yeah.
So if you never drank caffeine in the first place, you would still, through very high persistence, be able to access that energy.
So let's say that you have you've stayed awake for like 5 days.
Yeah.
Drinking caffeine, you've totally depleted your body of energy.
Right.
You drink caffeine, nothing happens. Is that what you're saying?
well, yeah, but you actually wouldn't deplete your body after 5 days. Like, your body
would
can
you
go
actually
much longer.
die if you depleted your body of energy?
If you were like on the brink of death or something and you drank caffeine, it would do nothing. Yeah. It really wouldn't do anything. And that's like a really important statement to observe.
So remember that if you're on the brink of death, don't try to drink caffeine to stay alive.
Yeah. So right. So so basically the other thing is too is this kind of leads to like people who are like, I have to have my coffee in the morning. Like I can't get started without my day. Well, you're right. You probably can't get started without your day because you're dependent on using caffeine as a facilitator to get your energy in your body. But if you had never drank caffeine in the first place, you would be accustomed to not having that facilitator, and you would be able to be normal and not dependent on caffeine.
Yeah.
My belief is the reason why people drink coffee is because the very first time it gives them that boost, and they think to themselves, why have I been ignoring this boost the entire time? But over time, that boost goes back down to what it normally was before they started, except now they're dependent on it.
Yeah.
So
that's why you are against caffeine.
Yeah, that's why I'm against caffeine, because in my belief, I don't think it gets you eventually to the same place that you were to begin with, and now you're dependent on something.
But now you're dependent on
something. And you don't want to be dependent on something, right?
It's expensive.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I want to finish on was just this idea of like taking like a 20-minute nap. Another like idea that you could use instead is like to meditate. I've read studies on it, and I really haven't done enough reading on them to know like how like true they are, but like I've heard that like 20 minutes of meditation, which you need to figure out what meditation is, because meditation is somewhat of an ambiguous term because there's a lot of different methods of meditation, but 20 minutes of like just focusing on like your breathing or something, and focusing your mind on something is like equivalent to adding like 2 hours of sleep to your day, is what I've heard somewhere around there. And I don't know these studies like I haven't really looked through them like well enough to necessarily push them, but that's just another idea. Is like if you don't want to take a nap, just sit and meditate.
Yeah. That's meditation is just proven to be good. There's also different types of meditation, but we won't get into that.
Yeah.
But the point is that I wouldn't necessarily say that those 2 hours. Now you can only sleep 6 hours a night because I half hour meditated or something.
I wouldn't
push that.
I wouldn't say that, but you're definitely getting quality rest from meditation. Like
Yeah.
I think you go to alpha waves instead of beta waves instead of alpha.
I'm not quite sure. I have to look that
Your
up.
body like relaxes and goes into a relaxation state and repairs a lot of it
Yeah.
during meditation. So
all right, guys. Well, thanks for listening in on us. Really appreciate your time, and check out our other podcasts. Thanks.
thanks.